A monkey abducted a Hafiza Quran girl and made her pregnant. A shocking story from the jungle. Today, we bring you a story so shocking that you will be compelled to seek Allah's forgiveness and repent. It is the story of a Hafiza Quran girl that will make your hair stand on end. This is about a girl who was abducted by a monkey. What did the monkey see in her that made him abduct her in broad daylight, right in the middle of her wedding ceremony? The people could only watch in shock as no one tried to rescue her from the monkey. Why didn't anyone intervene? To know the full details, stay with us till the end of this narrative. Where did the monkey take her after abducting her? What happened to her there? The details of this horrifying and unbelievable story defy human understanding. What the monkey did to her will leave you in disbelief, shaking to your core. What became of the girl? Was the child in her womb human or something else? Stay connected to this story till the very end to uncover the full truth. My name is Nathira, and I was standing in front of the mirror, getting ready. I had finished applying my makeup, but was struggling to choose the right outfit for the wedding. I couldn't decide what to wear. Today was the wedding of my dearest friend, and I was overjoyed because I wanted her to finally get married and be freed from her miseries. She had experienced hardship from a young age, and finally, happiness had come into her life. I prayed sincerely that no evil eye would ruin her happiness, but little did I know that my prayer was already too late. I picked out a green dress adorned with stars, gave my look a final touch, and headed toward the door. Just then, I bumped into my younger sister, who was rushing into the room at high speed. Neither of us saw the other, and the collision was so hard that my head spun. Stars danced in front of my eyes, and I felt as if the room had tilted. "Are you blind? Can't you see where you're going? What's the rush that you're flying around like this?" "My head is spinning," I shouted angrily at her. "Appy, you won't believe what I'm about to tell you. When you hear it, you'll rush out of here just like I did," she said, panting. I looked at her face, which was flushed red, her features panicked, as if she had seen something unbelievable. She had run back home in a frenzy, and it was evident from her state. Still holding my head, I realized that something serious must have happened. "What is it? What happened? You went to Sophia's house with Mom, right? Why are you back so soon? And why do you look so shaken?" I asked her. She grabbed my arm, led me to the bed and said, "Sit down first because what I'm about to tell you will leave you unable to stand." Her tone made me uneasy. "Tell me already, why are you trying to raise my blood pressure?" I said impatiently. "It's about Sophia. Someone abducted her," she said dramatically. I was taken aback. "What nonsense are you talking about? Today is her wedding day. Who would abduct her?" I asked in disbelief. "I'm not joking. It's true. Just a little while ago, someone kidnapped her," she repeated firmly, her tone devoid of any humor. I clutched my chest, feeling a pang of dread. "Oh Allah, what has happened? Who did this?" I asked her, trying to make sense of it. "No one knows yet. They'll check the CCTV footage, and only then will we know," she replied. "How do you know she was abducted? Could it be a misunderstanding?" I asked. "It's possible," she said, "but there's a lot of speculation. Some people are saying she ran away, while others claim someone abducted her. Who knows what the truth is?" I was stunned. Sophia was my childhood friend, and I knew her well. She wasn't the kind of girl who would run away from her home. The thought of her being in danger filled me with worry. She used to share everything with me. If there was anything troubling her, she would have definitely told me. Just a few days ago, I had met her. "Are you happy about this wedding?" I casually asked her while we were sitting together. "What is happiness?" she replied, answering my question with another question. "Happiness is when you feel peace within yourself," I responded, trying to understand her mental state. She said, "I don't know if I'm happy or not. I just have this faint hope that this might end the suffering I've endured. You know, Liba, I've reached the limits of my patience. I can't take this anymore. I feel like if I stay here any longer, I'll die. That's why, when this marriage proposal came, I immediately said yes, hoping that maybe this would change my fate." As she spoke, her tone became heavy with emotion. I pulled her close and tried to comfort her. "Don't worry, just keep thinking positively. Inshallah, this marriage will prove to be a new beginning for you. A way out of all your troubles," I reassured her. Hearing this, she gave a faint, sad smile. Her 18 years of life had been filled with such hardships that her smile had all but vanished, along with her sense of confidence and trust. Even though her wedding was happening, she still couldn't believe that something good could come her way. She had this underlying fear, and today her fear had come true. I told my sister, let's go and find out what's going on. I'm also worried about Sophia's mother, who was always concerned about her but could never really do anything to help her. My sister and I hurried to Sophia's house, where we found her mother crying uncontrollably. "Auntie, please be patient. She will be found," I tried to console her. If she was just lost, there would be hope that we'd find her. But now, we don't even know where she's gone or if she left on her own or was abducted, said Sophia's aunt, who was also sitting beside her mother and crying. In broad daylight, who would dare to abduct her in front of so many people? She must have left on her own, said a woman standing nearby. Another woman immediately rebuked her, saying, "Fear Allah, sister. Why are you accusing an innocent girl and ruining your afterlife with such accusations? We all know Sophia. She grew up in front of us, and we all know she would never do something like this. She isn't that kind of girl. Something wrong has happened to her. May Allah protect her and bring her back safely to her mother. Blaming her won't achieve anything." The first woman, embarrassed by the scolding, quietly walked away. But how many mouths could we shut? Every third person was saying that Sophia had run away, claiming that no one could abduct her from a house full of guests in broad daylight. Time passed, and each moment increased our worry. I sat beside Sophia's mother and asked, "Auntie, please tell me what exactly happened. Where was Sophia and where did she disappear from?" Sophia's mother replied, "It's just as if it happened last night. You saw how happy she was at the Mandi function. But this morning when I went to her room, she looked completely withered. There was no glow on her face at all, even though last night as a bride-to-be, her face was radiant. I even performed the ritual of removing the evil eye from her multiple times during the function. Yet somehow my daughter still fell victim to someone's envy. Her face this morning was so lifeless, and her eyes were void of any expression. I sat beside her and asked, "Sophia, why are you looking like this? Today is your wedding day, the day of happiness, yet you're sitting here as if you're mourning. What's wrong? Why are you so upset? Looking at you, no one would believe that you're about to become a bride in just a few hours." Hearing me, she moved closer to me and hugged me tightly. I gently patted her back. She stayed in my embrace for a long time, and I started feeling worried. I called out to her and said, "Sophia, come on now. Get up and start getting ready." After hearing me, she took a deep sob, and suddenly I felt her tears wetting my shoulder. I quickly turned her toward me and saw that she was silently crying, her face soaked in tears. When she looked up, she covered her face with her hands and started sobbing uncontrollably. Seeing her like this, my heart sank. I immediately removed her hands from her face and asked, "Sophia, my dear, what happened? Tell me, did someone say something to you? What's wrong? Please tell me." I kept asking her repeatedly, but she stayed silent, just crying. Seeing her like that tore me apart. I shook her and said, "Sophia, my heart will explode. Why are you testing my patience like this? Why won't you tell me what's wrong?" This time I asked her with a firmness that I hadn't shown before. Hearing the sternness in my voice, she finally grabbed my hand and said, "Mother, she..." Sophia said just this much and fell silent. I asked her to continue. "Yes, tell me, what happened?" But she said nothing, as if she had been struck dumb. I tried again. "Sophia, you were about to tell me something. What is it? Speak up." She replied, "Mother, I don't feel like leaving this place. How will I go without you? I won't be able to live without you. Please come with me." She spoke with a pleading tone. I asked her, "Is this the reason you are crying so much?" She nodded and said, "Yes, Mother, what else could it be? Today I have to leave this house, leave you behind. My childhood, my teenage years, everything has been spent in this house. The very thought of leaving it is unbearable for me. I never imagined I'd have to leave it someday." She was deeply upset. I hugged her tightly and said, "Don't be silly. When this house was your heaven, I had no objection to you staying here. But now this house is worse than hell for you. The sooner you leave it and start your new life, the better. I held her close for a long time, comforting her with kind words. She clung to me, listening quietly. When I finally let her go, there was a faint smile on her face which reassured me. Her earlier uncontrollable sobbing had truly worried me. I told her to start getting ready and left the room to oversee the other arrangements. The makeup artist arrived and I sent her to Sophia's room. After finishing some tasks, I returned to her room about an hour and a half later. She was ready, looking absolutely beautiful. Without thinking, I immediately performed the ritual of warding off the evil eye. However, when I looked closely at her face, it seemed dull and somber. Concerned, I asked her again if she was worried about something. She shook her head and then asked me, "Mother, where will the guests from the groom's side be seated?" I told her that the arrangements had been made in the ground outside. Hearing this, she said, "I'd like to take a look at the arrangements." I replied, "Not now, after the Nikah. When you leave with them, you'll see everything. The preparations aren't even complete yet." But she insisted, "It's okay, Mother. I just want to take a quick look now." Reluctantly, I agreed, thinking that the ground was nearby anyway. I told her to wait, saying I'd send someone with her. Then I went downstairs but got so caught up in work that I forgot to send someone to accompany her. When I remembered, I started heading toward her room, but on the way I ran into your sister. She told me that Sophia had already gone to the ground. I told her to tell Sophia to come back quickly and went back to work. Soon there was a commotion outside. The groom's party had arrived. I went out to welcome them and then went to Sophia's room to bring her down. But what I saw in her room shook me to my core. As soon as she said this, Sophia's mother broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. "Auntie, what happened in Sophia's room?" I asked. Through her tears, she replied, "Come, dear, let me show you her room. See for yourself what happened in there. I keep telling everyone that my daughter has been abducted, but no one believes me. They keep saying she left of her own will. Tell me, dear, you've been her childhood friend. Could Sophia really have run away from home?" Sophia's mother was speaking as we walked toward her room. I reassured her, "Auntie, I know Sophia. She would never do such a thing. Once the CCTV footage is checked, we'll know everything. Please don't worry anymore." By this time, we had reached Sophia's room. Her mother opened the door and said, "Look for yourself and then tell me. How can they still say that my daughter ran away? How can I make them believe me?" Sophia's mother said as she stepped into the room. I followed her inside, and the moment I set foot in the room, I was shocked by the state of it. The entire room was in disarray. The bedsheet had been pulled off the bed, the table and bookshelf were overturned, and all the items from the vanity table were scattered on the floor. A water jug that had been on the side table was shattered on the ground, soaking the carpet with water. The photo frames that once adorned the walls now lay on the floor, as if mourning their neglect. The room looked like the aftermath of a battle. It was clear that a struggle had taken place here, likely between two people. I was baffled by the ignorance of those who refused to acknowledge the evidence of what had happened. Her dupatta lay discarded on one side, and fragments of broken red bangles were scattered across the floor. Some of the shards had traces of blood on them. As I knelt down and picked up the pieces, I asked myself, who could have done this? Who would abduct Sophia? Suddenly, as a thought struck me, I stood up abruptly. "Auntie, this has to be Samir's doing. Where is Samir? Sophia must be with him. Find Samir and you'll find Sophia," I said with certainty. Hearing this, Sophia's mother looked at me in disbelief. I continued, "Believe me, Auntie, Samir is behind this. He's the one who abducted her." Samir was Sophia's maternal cousin, the son of her uncle and aunt. Sophia had been orphaned at a young age. Her father, who owned a large grocery store and a two-story house, had passed away suddenly from a heart attack when Sophia was only 7 years old. After her husband's death, Sophia's mother had arranged to rent out the store to a reliable man from the neighborhood. He would send the rent on time every month, and this income allowed Sophia's mother to manage the household expenses. Sophia continued her education at the madrasa, and life moved forward. Many neighbors suggested to Sophia's mother that she rent out the upper portion of the house as well to increase her income, but she refused. The stairs to the upper portion were accessible through the courtyard of the lower portion, and she didn't feel comfortable sharing the space with tenants. Besides, with just the two of them, the income from the shop rent was sufficient to meet their needs. Time went by, and one day Sophia's maternal uncle and his family came to live with them. Her uncle was distressed, and her aunt explained the situation. They had invested all their savings in a business partnership, but the partner turned out to be a fraud and ran off with their money. Her uncle searched for the man but couldn't find him. The stress of the loss had caused him to suffer a heart attack, and the doctors advised a bypass surgery. With no other assets left, they sold their house to pay for the surgery. Though the operation was successful, they had nowhere to go afterward. That's when they came to Sophia's house, hoping to stay there temporarily until they could find a place of their own. Sophia's mother welcomed her brother and sister-in-law warmly, allowing them to stay with her. However, 2 years passed, and they were still there, unable to find a place or start afresh. With no money in their pockets, they were entirely dependent on Sophia's mother's income from the store rent. One day, Sophia's aunt approached her mother and said, "Sajida, you know your brother's condition. Without money, we can't even start a small business. Even something as simple as setting up a cart requires a significant amount of money, which we don't have. As for finding a job, the doctor has strictly forbidden your brother from any strenuous activity. Even if he manages to find a job, his health would be at serious risk. We can't continue to live here indefinitely. But if you're willing, you could help us out during this difficult time." Sophia's mother asked, "What do you want me to do?" Her aunt replied, "We don't need much, Sahida. Just lend us some money so we can start a small business. Once we're stable, the first thing I'll do is repay your loan." Hearing this, Sophia's mother became visibly upset. "Pabi, you know that my only source of income is the rent from the store. That money is used to pay all the bills and buy groceries for the house. With more people in the house, our expenses have increased. Electricity usage has gone up, and we need more food. I used to have some savings left each month, but now there's nothing left. If I had anything to give, I would have given it without you even asking. But the truth is, I don't have anything right now." Despite this heartfelt explanation, Sophia's aunt refused to understand and instead started wailing and accusing her of being heartless. "Wow, Sahida, we came here thinking you were family, that we could find shelter here. But we were wrong. You've shown us how blood relations can turn cold. So now you're counting every morsel we eat? If you had so many issues with us, you should have told us earlier. We would have stayed under trees on the street, eating leaves and bark, rather than coming to your house," Sophia's aunt was saying when her uncle also entered the room. He too took great offense at Sophia's mother's words and declared that they would leave the house immediately. Despite doing nothing wrong, Sophia's mother was blamed for everything. She apologized to both her brother and sister-in-law, and after much pleading, they reluctantly forgave her. However, after that incident, Sophia's aunt constantly harassed her mother, always finding something to complain about. One day she suggested, "If it's so hard for you to feed us, why don't you let your brother manage the store? He can run it, and the extra profit will take the burden off you." Hearing this, Sophia's mother was stunned, but her sister-in-law pressured her so much that she eventually gave in and allowed her brother Liaquat to take charge of the store. As soon as Liaquat started managing the store, he began acting as if he were its owner. At the same time, Sophia's aunt took control of the household, treating Sophia and her mother like servants. By the time Sophia's mother realized what was happening, it was too late. Everything was already out of her hands. She never thought her own family could exploit her this way. Whenever she tried to speak up, her brother and sister-in-law threatened to kick her out of the house. Fearing homelessness, she remained silent, knowing they could do anything for their own benefit. To make matters worse, their son, Samir, added to their troubles in ways Sophia's mother was unaware of. But Sophia often confided in me about how Samir harassed and bothered her. He would seize every opportunity to annoy her, taunting her with inappropriate remarks and making her life miserable. Sophia had complained to her aunt about Samir's behavior several times, but she never took her seriously. Instead, her aunt would lash out at Sophia, accusing her of trying to ruin her son's reputation. Samir was a delinquent and often threatened Sophia. That's why I was certain he had something to do with her disappearance. I told Sophia's mother, "Call Samir and question him. He must be the one behind this. Find Samir and you'll find Sophia." Sophia's aunt overheard me and stormed into the room. How dare you accuse my innocent son? Have you no shame? Samir has never even looked at Sophia in that way, and now you're accusing him of abducting her? He was with me all night because my blood pressure was dangerously high. He stayed by my side the entire time and only left this morning to help search for Sophia after hearing about her disappearance, she said angrily. My argument with Sophia's aunt escalated until one of the women present intervened. Why are you two fighting? The CCTV footage will reveal everything soon enough. Stop arguing and wait for the footage, she said. Sophia's aunt glared at me before storming back to her room. A while later, Sophia's uncle and Samir returned with the footage, accompanied by some neighbors. Everyone gathered in the hall as Samir prepared to show the footage on the large TV screen so that everyone could see what had happened to Sophia. Something about Samir's sudden concern for Sophia didn't sit right with me. I couldn't figure out his intentions or his motives. The footage started, showing the events of that morning. Sophia was clearly seen walking to the ground outside. About 15 minutes later, she returned home, alone. The footage continued, showing various wedding guests coming and going. Nothing suspicious or out of the ordinary was apparent. Then suddenly there was a commotion in the hall. Wait, what is that? Stop the video! Look at this! What's going on? Someone shouted. I turned back to the screen, where a large monkey could be seen entering the house from the ground. This was no ordinary monkey. It was much larger than normal and behaving strangely, glancing around as if trying to avoid being seen. The monkey's movements were so unsettling that everyone in the hall started screaming, as though the monkey had entered the house in real life rather than just being in the footage. People looked around nervously, fearing the monkey might attack them. Samir tried to calm everyone down, assuring them that the monkey wasn't paused in the house. Relax, everyone. The monkey isn't here anymore. Stay calm, he said. Hearing Samir's reassurance, the commotion in the hall subsided and the video was resumed. About 15 minutes later, the monkey was seen leaving the house. But this time, everyone was even more shocked, because the monkey wasn't alone. He was carrying Sophia in his arms. Her head was tilted to one side, indicating she was unconscious. The monkey, tall and strong, easily carried Sophia out of the house. He could be seen walking to the end of the street before disappearing from the camera's view, as there were no further cameras in that area. Everyone stared at the video in disbelief, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. This was unprecedented. A monkey abducting a girl. Such a thing had never happened before. No one could believe it. Sophia's aunt quickly chimed in. See? I told you my son had nothing to do with this. Who knows what Sophia did to upset that monkey, that it carried her away like that. But everyone had the same lingering question. How could a monkey abduct a human? No one had an answer. Sophia's mother, overwhelmed by grief, began crying even harder, terrified of what the monkey might do to her daughter. Meanwhile, Samir, along with some neighbors, set out toward the street that led to the nearby forest. Everyone suspected the monkey must have taken Sophia into the forest. Morning turned into afternoon and afternoon into evening, but there was still no trace of Sophia. Guests from the wedding party began leaving one by one. Even the groom's family, frustrated and exhausted, decided to leave. The groom himself, who had also joined the search for Sophia, returned and told his mother, "Let's leave. There's nothing left for us here." Some women tried to stop the groom's mother, pleading with her to reconsider. "Don't do this, sister. She's going to be your daughter-in-law," they said. But the groom's mother retorted, "Forgive us, but we can't take such a girl into our family. She's no longer fit to be anyone's daughter-in-law. Let her stay with her family. No one will marry her now." With these words, they left. Sophia was eventually found around 10 p.m. when Samir returned with her in his arms. Her condition spoke volumes about the ordeal she had endured. The groom had seen her and left immediately, his face filled with disdain. Sophia's condition was dire. An ambulance was immediately called and she was rushed to the hospital. There, the doctors confirmed everyone's worst fears. Sophia had been assaulted. This news hit her mother like a thunderbolt. She couldn't fathom how the monkey could have done something so horrifying to her daughter. She kept fainting from the shock, unable to bear the reality. The doctors reported that Sophia's entire body was covered in scratches and bite marks. Her skin bore the signs of being clawed and torn. After 3 days in the hospital, she was sent back home, but her mental state had deteriorated severely. She frequently had episodes of unconsciousness, and when awake, she would scream and thrash about as if trying to escape someone's grip. During these episodes, it became extremely challenging for her mother to manage her. Surprisingly, Sophia's aunt showed unusual sympathy during this time, but it was of little comfort. It took Sophia nearly 2.5 months to recover from the trauma. She finally came to terms with what had happened to her and resigned herself to the fact that was never meant to be a part of her life. People continued visiting Sophia's home to offer their condolences. But barely 10 or 15 days had passed when another calamity struck. Sophia's health began to decline drastically. Her complexion grew paler each day, further alarming her mother. That day, I went to visit Sophia at her house. I sat with her for a long time, trying to talk to her, but she remained mostly silent, responding only occasionally. After spending some time with her, I got up to leave. As I was approaching the main gate, Sophia's mother called out to me. I turned back and asked if she needed anything. She said, "No, dear, I don't need anything. I just have a request." I replied, "Auntie, what are you saying? You're elder to me. Just tell me what you need." She said, "You know, for the past several days, Sophia's health hasn't been good. I'm starting to worry something might be wrong with her. I've told her multiple times to go to the hospital, but she doesn't listen to me. Maybe you can convince her to go with you and get her tested." Hearing this, I became just as worried as her mother. What she was suggesting was necessary, so I assured her, "Auntie, don't worry, I'll take her to the hospital tomorrow." The next day I went to Sophia's room, but she refused to get up. "Sophia, if you don't get up now, I'll be so angry that I'll never visit you again," I said firmly. My warning worked, and she got up saying, "You're terrible." I coaxed her, "Come on, it'll just take a little while and we'll be back quickly." Eventually, I managed to convince her to come with me. On the way, I explained why her mother wanted her to get tested. Hearing this, she began crying uncontrollably. I could understand her emotions, so I comforted her, saying, "It's not necessary that what we're thinking is true. It could just be a misunderstanding." We arrived at the hospital where her tests were conducted. A while later, the doctor came and broke the news Sophia was pregnant. Bringing Sophia back home was an ordeal. She tried to harm herself multiple times on the way. It took all my effort to get her home safely. Once there, I told her mother, "Please take extra care of her and never leave her alone. In her current state, she keeps attempting to take her own life." A girl might prefer death over giving birth to an illegitimate child, but Sophia wasn't even carrying a human child. It was the offspring of a monkey. How could she not feel the urge to end her life? Marriage was already a distant possibility for her, and now this pregnancy had closed every door. It was unthinkable for anyone to marry her now. One day, Sophia's aunt came to her mother and said, "Look, Sayida, we all know what happened to Sophia was horrible. It should never have happened. I feel deeply sorry for her, which is why I spoke to your brother. We've made a decision together. If you don't mind, can I share it with you?" Sophia's mother, emotionally broken, replied, "I have nothing left. What did we do to deserve such a horrific punishment for my daughter? I feel like my heart will burst one day from the pain." Sophia's aunt tried to console her, saying, "Sajida, don't worry. You're not alone in this. We're here for you. Family stands by each other in difficult times, and we're your family. Don't stress about Sophia. Your brother has come up with a solution to end your worries. We think Sophia and Samir should get married." Sophia's mother looked at her sister-in-law in shock and said, "How is that even possible?" The aunt replied, "Why not? Of course it's possible. Whatever happened has happened, but in this difficult time, we won't abandon you. Samir and Sophia's marriage will solve everything." Sophia's mother asked, "Has Samir agreed to this?" The aunt replied, "We haven't talked to him yet because we wanted to discuss it with you first. But don't worry about Samir. He never goes against his father's wishes." Grateful for their apparent support, Sophia's mother thanked her brother and sister-in-law for stepping up and agreeing to accept her daughter despite everything. Little did she know how cunning and malicious their true intentions were. If Sophia's mother had even the slightest idea of their plans, she would have poisoned herself and Sophia rather than agree to this marriage. But unfortunately, she remained unaware. Thus, Sophia and Samir's marriage took place, and Samir, along with Sophia's uncle and aunt, gained a reputation for being kind and noble. People admired them for marrying a girl no one else was willing to accept. Everyone praised them for their generosity. Sophia quietly married Samir, and that was what bothered me the most. How could Sophia, who couldn't even bear to hear Samir's name, agree to marry him without protest? But the truth behind this mystery was soon revealed. When the time came, Sophia gave birth to a baby. Contrary to everyone's assumptions, the child wasn't a monkey's offspring. It was a human baby, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Samir. Seeing the baby, everyone started questioning how this could be possible. How could a monkey's child be born human, and exactly like Samir? That day, we women were gathered around Sophia when she picked up her baby and said, "God has exposed the truth. What they wanted to hide, Allah has brought to light." When we asked her what she meant, her answer sent chills down our spines. Sophia revealed, "Everything that happened to me was Samir's doing, and my aunt was complicit in it. On the night of my Mendi, as I was lying down to sleep, I felt someone enter my room. Before I could react, someone covered my mouth and started assaulting me. I recognized him. It was Samir. He did this to take revenge because I had refused to marry him. Afterward, he threatened me, saying that if I told anyone, he would have me handed over to the monkey. He brought that monkey that same night. While he was committing the act, the monkey was right there watching. The next day, I tried to tell my mother, but Samir stopped me, threatening me again. Later, he trained the monkey to abduct me and take me to the forest to divert suspicion from him. Although the monkey hurt me physically, the real culprit behind everything was Samir. And here is the proof. His son looks exactly like him. When they found out I was pregnant, they took full advantage of the situation, forcing me to marry Samir to make themselves look righteous in the eyes of the world. Their ultimate goal was to kill me and take over my property. Hearing Sophia's confession, we were all stunned. It was the first time we truly realized how self-serving and deceitful people could be. When Sophia's mother learned the truth, she threw Samir, her brother, and her sister-in-law out of the house. She told Samir, "If you survive the punishment you deserve, then come back. But even then, you'll only have a place in this house if Sophia forgives you. Otherwise, the consequences of what you've done will be severe."